Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Evan Here's Culture campaign. Today, I've got a special guest, just a magnificent guest. He is a writer, he is an actor, he is a poet, he's a publishing mogul, and he is also a musician himself. It is Tuckerman Wunderle.
Hello, everyone. A pleasure to be here, Evan. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on, and I'm very grateful that you're on because the album that we're talking about today is Alex G's, or Sandy Alex G, as he was called for a little bit, I guess.
For a little bit, I guess, right?
2014.
Because that's pretty much what
Yeah, okay, I was trying to look this up. I'll just address this. So on the list, on the Pitchfork list, he's credited as Sandy Alex G. But looking it up, when this album was released, DSU, which is the album we're talking about, he wasn't called that yet. And then in 2017, he changed it to Sandy Alex G. So I think that's why they put that on the list. But then in 2020, this year, he changed it back to Alex.
He changed it back to Alex G because my entire Apple Music thing went from Sandy Alex G to Alex G. And now I'm worried that it's going to mess up my, Wrapped at the end of the year. Like, they're going to credit it as two different things because I listened to so much Alex G, as it were, now. That I'm really worried it's gonna.
But this is why I'm glad I have you on, Tuck, because I can tell just from listening to this album, the handful of times that I've listened to it, that if this wasn't a guest episode, boy oh boy would I have been stuck trying to come up with some sort of bit or some sort of gag for this one, because what even is this album, Tuck? Can you just kind of try to describe it in just or Alex G's music as a whole?
Alex G as a whole would be a little easier, I think.
Mm-hmm.
My sort of infatuation with him is fairly recent, and I think it kind of stemmed from my love of listening to full albums in their entirety. That's pretty much like the only way I'll listen to music if I have time. And that sort of disposition towards music going into Alex G's music is almost essential, I think, because it's less of you get oh, this is a good song, I can jam to this, I can vibe to this, but it's really about listening to the full dirge of his folk.
Dirge, yeah.
It's a dirge, but it's
a dirge.
It's the best dirge. It's not a bad, usually you hear dirge, you think pretty terrible thing.
Well, dirge is, I believe it's a song sung, in respect to somebody who's died, right? So
and, I wouldn't call it that necessarily, while there are certain songs by Alex G not on DSU, such as County and Hope come to mind, which is certainly about people who have died. I would say more of a dirge in that it's this long kind of, it's this folk slog that kind of pulls you along and just kind of you know what I mean? And it's one of those things where you get to the end of one of his albums and you're like, oh my God, I just listened to a whole album? That was crazy. At least for me, that's how I experience it. It's this never ending kind of stream of just subduing me, and then by the end of it I'm like, oh my God, I'm so chilled out, and I just listened to 45 minutes of great music.
It puts you in sort of some sort of fugue state, almost, you'd say.
Yeah, you could say that. It's sort of 2 a.m. kind of quiet on the speaker. I'm just lying in bed scrolling through Facebook, nothing's going on, and then all of a sudden I've listened to a whole album, and it's great.
Well, how did you discover Alex G? Because it seems like he's somehow both incredibly prolific and well known, and yet completely underground, and nobody's ever heard of him.
For me, I had no idea about Alex G maybe, I don't know, a year ago, and then I think I saw it on iTunes, just randomly recommended for me, or maybe, I think it might have been one of my very good friends, Gabe Alanoff, who I don't know if you know.
Shout out to Gabe.
Shout out to Gabe. Big shout out to Gabe. Great guy. Love that guy. He was listening to a lot of Alex G during a period, and I follow him on Apple Music, so it was showing me like, oh, friends are listening to this, and I gave it a try, and I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. And so I listened to Rocket a whole lot, and then slowly kind of branched out to his other albums. But you're right about that. It's weird because he is sort of like, no one knows about him. It's very hard to hear about him. And then like he's also on like the Pitchfork list.
And the critics love him. So DSU, which is Dream State University.
I didn't even know that.
You didn't even know that was it was his sister suggested the title, and then she was about to put it on the Dream State University on the cover because she did the artwork, and she's like, no, DSU. Yeah. And just briefly on the artwork, I think this album, more so than any album, just goes to show you how biased I am towards sports, because the album is a quarterback like running down the field, and just from seeing that with no idea of what the music would be like, I was like, oh, I already hate this. Just without realizing, I was like, this is sport music.
No, see, to tell you the truth, I didn't listen to DSU for a while because I was like, I don't want to listen to sports music. Like,
okay, so I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy. Like I don't want to hear folk versions of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." That sounds terrible. Like that's horrible. But that's not what DSU is.
Not what it is. Yeah, I will say. So I liked it. Okay. I don't know if I
was nervous.
Understand it, or would ever find myself as lost in it as you, but there were definitely songs that I really did like. Harvey was one of the big ones. Hollow was great, and I listened to it multiple times. By the third time, I was singing along.
Right? Yeah.
There was something that kept it from. I never felt like pleasant listening to it. It was something jarring.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. I definitely feel you. It's not like a dance album. You can't really dance to it. Like there are maybe like 3 Alex G songs that you could maybe get like a little bit of like a hoedown groove to with your honey on a sweet, warm summer night.
Summer night.
But with the pickup trucks and all that. But like it's not. It's not.
It'd be more like longboards on the beach
fair.
Or something like that. I think would.
Although it's from Pennsylvania, so I.
Okay, well, I don't know. You know more than I do about honeys and dancing in the moonlight with a lassie.
Anyone can read a Wikipedia page.
But yeah, it's not really a dance album. It's like, what is it? Is it pop? Is it rock? Is it?
It's officially listed as alternative, which
doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean jack crap. I'd call it like alternative folk, probably.
Okay.
Alternative folk with hints of rock and country. You could maybe
it was a little bit of everything. I would listen to it and I'd be like, this sounds like I'd always sort of hear the whispers of some other band or some other artist like in my head, but I could never pinpoint who I was thinking of in any way. I was like, what is it? I never nailed it down.
He was pretty simplistic. I mean, the songs aren't that complex. I mean, guitar, drums, singing, couple wonky hoo-has here and there, but it takes you, like it kind of grabs you, and it grabs you in a unique way, because I've been on a huge Alex G kick recently. Like if you went through my recently listened to for the last 6 months, it's pretty much only him. I mean, not only him, but pretty much. And it's just sort of that thing where like, once you get that like specific feel of his under your skin, it's hard to like be craving that and listen to almost anything else.
Tuck, my take on the sound of the album, I wonder if you'll agree with this, is that every song sounds like how in like punk albums of the 2000s, I feel like this is
right where you're going with this.
Is most punk, and on the CDs there'd be like the final track, and then like 30 seconds would pass, and there would be like the secret track at the end, which is like really low production and goofy and just them having fun. That was what every song in this album sounded like to me.
You're dead on. I guess one of the things that draws me to his music so much more than like because he's a good musician, he's a good guitar player, like that's just like a fact. And his like lyrics are interesting. Some of them are really gripping and compelling. And then he has songs like Whale off of Trick, which is like, my favorite animal is the whale. I like its big fat tail. And it's like, that's excellent. Like, I don't know. Not exactly like, very poetic, but
it's not like Keats or
Keats, but you can tell he's having fun. Like he's just making music that he like really like enjoys making, like whether it's like sad or mournful or kind of comforting and folky, like it's just fun for him, it seems.
What are the songs on this album?
What are the songs?
What are the what are your favorites?
My favorites? Wow. This was something I prepared a little bit for, not really.
Amazing.
I've got specific favorites, which would be "Serpent is Lord." I love that song. The
love that title.
The title is great. I love the little guitar, the little thing that he does. That's excellent. I'm a big fan of "Hollow." You mentioned is a really good song. "Harvey" also a really good song. But I have to say that when I'm listening to like the album as a whole, which is really how I suggest anyone to experience this, you get to Icehead and you get like 2/3 of the way in, and there's these weird, goofy horn synths that come in, and I swear to God, those horns coming in is the most hype I ever get listening to any music ever, because it's like 9 or 10 songs of like folky kind of dirge, and then he hits you with this like very like strangely produced like kind of womp sound, and it's like womp 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 womp, and it's like super goofy, and I just fall in love with it.
Can I get like, a little bit more?
A little bit more? Oh yeah. Yeah, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Shucks. But like he just like hits you with that out of nowhere, and it just keys you right back in. Like you can kind of be listening to the background for the whole album, and like you hear something that's that like out of place, but also like amazing, and it just gets you right back in. So I'd probably say for that specific reason, Icehead is the song I enjoy hearing the most when it comes on.
Anything you'd like to talk about, Tuck, that you've got coming up? Any projects or stuff that's out now you want people to?
You're putting the pressure on me. Well, if you want to check out my album on SoundCloud, Indie 650, feel free. INDI 650, all one word. It's cool. I enjoyed making it a lot. Interesting experience for me. But the one thing I would plug for sure is the Uncle Tiger Publishing House, which is a small literary collective that I guess I would say I run, although my very good...
With friend of the show, Billy Roeder, right?
Roeder, of course. Yeah, yes. So yeah, we run Uncle Tiger Publishing House together. The small literary collective. Your host,
as well as band,
has been on. Oh yeah, well Uncle Tiger the band.
His own work on SoundCloud as well, with featuring.
You could check out. You could check out the Uncle Tiger Afloat EP, which is an absolute classic of 5 straight bangers. Or you could check out their our first album, which was titled Self-Titled, because we're little pricks.
Thank you for coming on, Tuck. So a pleasure to talk to you about Alex G.
I love it so much. This is my favorite thing that happens on Instagram. I'll be straight with it.
Oh, no, come on.
No, it is. I mean, I don't know. I don't go on Instagram that much, but when I do, it's to hear some culture.